Hey, this is Michael Brent Collings. I'm the author of GRIMMWORLD, The Witch in the Woods, with my real, not at all paid actor kids. Say hi, real kids.
Hi.
Chapter 1, Laser Blasters and Big Bears. This is how the story began. Not with once upon a time, not in a castle or a faraway land, but in a living room, where Willow Grimm sat in silence with her twin brother Jake as their parents told them the big news. They were going to move from the boring, nothing ever happens here place called Los Angeles, California, to an exciting, interesting, exotic place called New Marburg, Idaho. Willow knew her parents were lying, and she could tell Jake knew it too. The parents might find the move exciting and interesting, but Willow, who was almost 11 and loved books and art and music and sports, and Jake, who was 8 minutes younger than his twin sister and loved science and math and video games and facts, would not. The twins would find the move a little confusing, a lot scary, and hugely inconvenient. Willow would be leaving friends, never-ending sunshine, and the beach. Jake would be leaving the city library with its gigantic mobile of the solar system, and the reference librarian, who had a tattoo of a bull on his forearm, and when he made a fist, the bull looked like it was kicking. The twins would be leaving the mall where there was a shop that made the best soft pretzels in the world and let you choose between cheese, mustard, or 7 different hot sauces to dip them in. They would be leaving everything. The parents were selling this move as a fairy tale, a once upon a time that would lead inevitably to happily ever after. But both Willow and Jake were smart enough to understand that once upon a time was a lie. This story wasn't going to start with one interesting moment, but with hours and hours in a car. And as for happily ever after, Willow had read enough books to know that just as many stories ended in tragedy as in triumph. "What about school?" asked Jake. "I mean, it's barely November. We just started." Willow knew Jake didn't particularly like school. The other kids could be mean, but he adored his teacher, Mrs. Willamot Watt Not Watt, and especially adored saying her name. "Yeah, what about school?" asked Willow, because though she didn't really love school either, she couldn't think of anything better to ask in that moment and didn't want Mom and Dad to think she was on their side. Dad, whose name was Phil, said, "I'd have thought you'd be happy about leaving, Willow, given the trouble you're in." Willow sulked. "The kid shouldn't have bullied Jake. And you shouldn't have superglued his fingers to the bottoms of his feet, sweetie," said Dad. Willow sulked some more. Jake squeezed his big sister's shoulder and whispered, "I thought it was awesome." "Regardless," said Mom, whose name was Dorothy, though everyone called her Dot, "where we're going is amazing. You'll love it. And we're going to do astounding things together." Then she and Dad grinned at each other like fools and held hands and kissed. Willow rolled her eyes and Jake gagged, but they didn't argue anymore because they could tell the move was going to happen. Their parents had decided. End of story, as they say. Though, as we shall find, the end of every story is the beginning or middle of another, and sometimes it's all three at once. Willow and Jake both helped pack their things in boxes. In truth, Jake helped more because he loved facts, and a great deal of packing involves making labels and lists, which are just facts in training. And then they both helped put the packed boxes in a big moving truck. In truth, Willow helped more, as she had always been exceptionally strong, which is how she was able to hold Randall Stimp's hands to his feet for the 10 seconds needed for super quick quasi-glue to harden. The moving truck said New Marburg in orange letters on either side, and it came with 2 men. A giant man named Todd, and an even gianter man also named Todd. The Todds wore orange jackets that also said New Marburg, and they helped move the biggest items in the house, like the piano Mom played and was teaching Willow to play, and the couch where Dad yelled at sports, and where Jake played video games. When the packing was done, Giant Todd handed Mom a receipt, while Giant or Todd shut the door to the back of the truck, sealing their things inside. "We'll have everything in your new place when you arrive," said Giant Todd. He wiped his brow with the back of his arm, then patted down his blonde hair. He wiped his brow down with the back of his arm, then patted down his blonde hair. "Is it as nice as they say?" asked Mom. Giant or Todd grinned. He had a round face with chubby cheeks that made his broad smile somehow even happier, almost enough that you didn't notice the dark tattoos curled all over his face. "Nicer." His voice was high-pitched, which made Jake giggle. Willow glared at him and told him not to be rude. Then the Todds drove away. Mom went through the house one last time to make sure we don't miss anything, and Dad went with her. Willow and Jake waited by the fancy new car in the driveway. The new Marburg think tank, the company where Mom and Dad would be working, had given it to them a few months ago after they had agreed to work there, and which was the reason why they were moving. The new Marburg think tank, which Dad said everyone just called the tank, was a mystery. Willow and Jake couldn't find anything about it, or even about New Marburg, Idaho on the internet. Mom and Dad were very closed-lipped about it, saying only that the tank was a place full of very smart people who would perhaps change the world, according to Mom, if they didn't blow it up first, according to Dad. Strange. But the car was nice, and it provided an excellent place to lean while the kids waited for Mom and Dad. "Come on, let's swing on the swing one last time," said Willow. As she started toward the rope swing that hung from a tree in the front yard, a tall old man came around from the back of the house. He wore an old gray coat that looked strangely both new and threadbare, and which looked like a suit if you tilted your head this way, but if you tilted your head that way, it looked like a robe. Even stranger, his eyes had neither whites nor irises, but were completely gold. They flashed in the sun like gold coins on the face of a dead man. Willow had read about that in one of her books and told Jake about it, and both of them pretended not to have bad dreams afterward, even though they did. Strangest of all was the laser blaster he pulled from his suit robe. At first it looked like a movie prop, something that would have been at home on the Star Wars set, but then it flickered and the white turned gray and metallic before it shifted back to the boxy plastic. It shimmered again, and the edges caught the sunlight and flashed, not like gold eyes or gold coins, but like a silver-edged blade. "You plots, you GRIMMWORLD can't, I have to," shouted the old man, which would have struck Jake as odd and Willow as funny if the whole thing hadn't struck them both as terrifying. The old man bolted past Willow. See, I read bad. I'm a writer, not a reader. He had a strange way of running. Sometimes he seemed to be moving forward, other times back. It was like watching a movie with its scenes cut apart and then rearranged, the images flickering toward a terrifying end, which was, in this case, Jake, who had very sensibly turned to run from the robe-wearing man, only to find his way blocked by the car. He spun around, then screamed and fell to the ground against the rear tire of the car. He lifted his arm to protect himself from the strange man and the weapon he had raised above him. But nothing happened, because the man with the strange coat and gold eyes was gone. Mom and Dad came running out of the house because they had heard the scream. But when Jake and Willow told them what had happened, Mom and Dad didn't seem to hear them.